Much.
Hello there, everybody. Nice to see you all, and thank you for coming. My name is Sara Durose, and I'm assistant head teacher at Sir Henry Floyd Grammar School. However, I'm currently on a secondment to an upper school within our trust locally, so I'm doing that for a year. I've been teaching for, I don't know how long actually, maybe about 16 years, and been a senior leader for the last 5 years, and have responsibility for staff wellbeing as part of my remit.
And I'm Sam Holdsworth, Deputy Head Teacher at Sir Henry Floyd Grammar School in Aylesbury. I've had the privilege of working in the non-selective system at comprehensives in London and Surrey before moving to Buckinghamshire with my family, where I worked as a senior leader in 2 schools on both sides of the selective system. I've been teaching a similar sort of time to Sarah, about 15 years or so, and a senior leader for about 8 years. So we're going to share a presentation, and it probably means that you won't see our faces anymore, but I think we've been told by Mark that you can change your own view on your Zoom if you do want to still see our faces. You might prefer not to, but we'll just quickly whiz back to the start of our presentation, really, about a culture around staff wellbeing. And really the aims of today, having introduced ourselves, is very much, seems to be slow on mine, but okay. It's like, yeah, don't worry. Very much is that the journey we're on, the aim today is to really kind of share the journey, and we very much see ourselves at midway through that journey, and we definitely humbly say we've got a long way to go as well in sort of building strategies to improve wellbeing at the school, but we really hope that in sharing some of those strategies that we've put in place, that you'll be able to apply those into your own school context as well. So the first half of this webinar, the first kind of 3 parts really is input, which we think will take about 40 minutes before we pause for a comfort break. We'll have an opportunity for you to kind of reflect on some things that we've said, and then the second half is interactive. So for those who would like to stay on, then we'll get people into breakout rooms and have a chance to really discuss some of the stuff that we've talked about, and hear also from you and some things that you're doing at your schools. So the first half is really input, and then the second half a more Q&A and interactive session. So we'll get started about why wellbeing is important to us. We've got that typical photo that many of you will have seen, those staged photos that we see in every school prospectus. Happy staff, happy students, a very happy culture. But sadly, the truth can often not be anything like that, with numerous teachers feeling really, really burnt out, exhausted, or disillusioned. And we've been quite inspired by kind of what's been going on in the corporate world and their innovative approaches. We've seen a lot of sort of key companies and industries making great strides in wellness, and their kind of approaches have inspired us to kind of taking a broader approach to removing barriers from staff so they can be more effective in their jobs. We looked at research in large companies who are embracing therapy, prioritizing healthy eating, inclusion, exercise, participation, all these things. We're aware that it can be really tough in schools because we have often, in comparison, very small budgets. So there's even more of a need, I think, for leaders to be quite brave and innovative. So we're coming from this approach that if you look after your teachers and your support staff, then they will look after the students in front of them, and they will look after their parents too. And we recognise, if I move on to the next slide, that thankfully wellbeing's now explicitly referred to, as we know, it has been for a few years now, in the Education Inspection Framework, which has been gratefully received by most in the profession, because it puts pressure on leaders like ourselves and some of the in this virtual room to kind of take the lead in building a culture around wellbeing. If any of you are new to creating a wellbeing strategy, at your school and aren't sure where to start, we do recommend Anna Floyd at the National Centre for Children and Families. Her 20-page PDF document is free to download and a really good place to get you set up in just outlining. I think it is 10 simple steps to get started in building a culture around wellbeing, whether that's appointing wellbeing champions or having it as a standing item at leaders' meetings, including the governing board. So ultimately, we feel, if we move on to the next slide, I'll move over to Sara Durose to say a few words before.
Okay, thank you very much, Sam. So that gives an outline as to why we kind of prioritised wellbeing and why we think it was important. So what I want to talk to you about a little bit now is kind of our context and our journey. So we probably started out properly prioritising this maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. And a little bit about us is that we are an outstanding co-educational and inclusive grammar school, and we're also very proud to be part of Insignis Academy Trust. Our vision is to be the grammar school of today and to try to pioneer an education which equips the visionaries of tomorrow. So it's a big values and big ideas there. However, as Sam said, we feel it's absolutely paramount. So in order to achieve that, we need to invest in our staff. We need to keep good staff, and we need them to be really valued so that they can be really effective in the classroom. So we started out about 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, really prioritising wellbeing and making it an SLT agenda item on everything that we did. And what we're going to do today is we're going to basically go through with you the strategy that we've used and some of the small things and some of the bigger things that we've done to really try to genuinely prioritise wellbeing. So the strategy that we created really had 3 strands to it. The first was wellbeing, which is all about looking after staff and making sure that they are happy to come to work. The second thing was workload, so looking at how we manage staff workloads, that is realistic and manageable, but also so that the things we're asking our staff to do are things that actually have an impact on children's experiences and children's outcomes, and where that wasn't the case, changing things. And finally, recruitment and retention, which was really about making sure that we recruit the best staff and also that we keep our really outstanding staff. And we're really committed to establishing and sustaining this culture because we want every member of staff to make sure that they feel valued and that they know that they are valued. So as I said, we're going to go through a series of things that are to do with wellbeing, workload, recruitment and retention. We've also got some videos from some of our staff talking about some of the initiatives that we've put in place. You'll notice as we go through the presentation, some of these things are actually costs to the school. So they're going to be financial costs, which I know school budgets can be very challenging. So that is one thing that we have done. We have invested financially. However, there are also some things we will share with you which don't incur any financial cost, which we hope will be of use. So it's very much for you to listen to what we've done, and then as Sam said, towards the end of the session we're going to give you some time to reflect and to think about whether any of the things we've done could be applied in your context. Okay, so I'm going to pass back to Sam.
Yep. Ultimately, we feel that our wellbeing, workload and staff retention strategy kind of could be summed up in these 4 bullet points on the slideshow. Career development, we feel, is really closely associated with wellbeing, and people really need to know how they're going to grow through the organisation. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Secondly, it was very much about the sense of wellbeing. People need a sense of community and connectedness. They need to kind of given opportunities to engage. Thirdly, we've looked a lot at making sure that people feel that they really matter and that what they do has impact and that is celebrated and recognised. So we've really thought about strategically about how we can do that in different ways. And then a really important part that we've really worked on over the last few years is kind of giving people space and time to think, to breathe, recuperate, especially in that last year where there's been that kind of panic productivity that's been talked about a lot, that was created through the pandemic, people working harder than ever before, higher levels of anxiety and stress. So that kind of hyper productivity we've worked on really hard to kind of prevent exhaustion and stress. And we're going to talk through some of those things that we've done to do that. So the first thing to start with is the career development, which a lot of that has come through our CPD program and how we do feel that's really good for wellbeing. We've just got a minute or 2-minute video from a member of staff who is a faculty leader for performing arts at our school, who we actually part funded his PhD in education as part of his CPD, and he is now an associate assistant head teacher as well. And he's just going to say a few words.
That I really value is the CPD offer that the school gives to us as staff. There are lots of different options, from NPQ programs through to working with challenge partners. You can go through the linking network and link up with other schools, all the way through to a kind of bespoke option where you can approach the leadership team with a course or a piece of training or development that you want to do. So, for example, I did the NPQML. I've done a challenge partners course. I'm starting to work towards my Google Educator level 1, and also the school have contributed both financially and with time towards a qualification that I'm trying to achieve. So because I'm developing the way that I want, that improves my well-being. So lots of different options, a whole array of kind of autonomy in development is kind of really, really important. I think it's something that's really valued here at the school.
So one
part of the well-being.
That's right.
Sorry about that.
I think you'll need to mute again, won't you? So, oh, you're muted. Okay. Sorry if there's a bit of echo. Hopefully that's a bit. Let's unmute and see if that's better.
That's unmuted now.
Okay. Sorry, is that echo for people, or is that?
Hang on a minute.
Okay. Hopefully you can hear me now. Sorry about that. There was some echo at our end, and we seem to have fixed it. So when we redesigned our CPD program a few years ago, we really had wellbeing in mind. We know that staff don't actually mind being busy as long as what they're doing is relevant and meaningful and has impact and is enjoyable. So we really thought hard about our CPD intent and made sure that, as you can see on the slide, some of those really key, essentially kind of ideologies behind our CPD were put into fruition. And so when we kind of do our CPD, a big thing is that we wanted to provide a whole load of choice for people, and people really do choose what they want to do. So for example, on the left-hand side, they might choose the pathway that we have of evidence-informed practice, and that might be joining a research group. We've got about 20 staff who join research groups, and one thing that's key about that is they choose who they want to work with, when they want to meet, where they meet. People, some of them met in cafes, and what they want to study as well, and that very much the job of SLT was just to facilitate and help them find research material where they needed it. But very much it was led by them, both in terms of how they manage their time and the sort of content as well. And we also within that had subject specific groups. So we had a languages group, studying a book on breaking the sound barrier, teaching language learners how to listen. We had a SEND team who ended up drafting a mental health framework out of their research group and what they'd read as well. And then we have other pathways as well that are all about managing time in the way they like. So for example, harnessing technology pathway, people who want to do a Google Educator level 1 or 2, the training modules and the exam done is online, and they get to choose again when they want to study. And we trust our staff to do that. We're not monitoring. We don't go to these research meetings unless we're invited, but we trust our staff to choose what they want to do and to go ahead and get on with their CPD. We give time to it. Last year we gave three inset days that we converted to holiday, so that they could have around we thought around 15 hours therefore of time dedicated to these different courses that you've got here. We're big as well. We know part of wellbeing is kind of being able to be outward looking. As part of our Aylesbury Vale Challenge Partners Hub, we've actually been sharing, we've had wellbeing as a standing item on our agenda. So we've been really sharing with the schools in our hub about how we're all tackling wellbeing at the moment, and also bespoke leadership courses that we designed ourselves, that were very much relevant and current to people alongside the MPQs. And then also taking advantage of, we're in in Cygnus Academy Trust, so having really low stakes health checks where peers would go and see what's going on in the other school. We have a Spanish teacher from one school coming and visiting us next week and observing, but completely low stakes, and information that isn't being passed back to the SLT, but really again giving them trust to have the right conversations with each other. And then lastly, the bespoke option is, if anything that we offer isn't right for people, we always say there's an option for anybody. If there's anything anyone wants to do, then just to pitch it at the beginning of the year to myself, and as long as we feel it's in line with the school vision, then we authorize it. So we've got all sorts of different people doing very subject specific CPD. We've got somebody doing an athletics course, a British athletics course, somebody else doing a photography course, and we very much understand that those kind of courses are really, really powerful for people's well-being. And as you'll see, we've noticed the impact of that. So in an anonymous staff survey, to really, after our kind of second year of redesigning the CPD program with well-being in mind, it was really interesting to see the impact that had on staff. As you can see some of the quotations on the slides there, how they really valued that autonomy and flexibility, and actually understanding that we did have staff welfare in mind through it.
Okay, so I'm just going to take over now and talk about some of the things that we've really done to prioritise staff wellbeing, creating a sense of community and connectedness. So I've divided this into three areas, if you like. The first one is to do with community, and we really wanted to create some community events for staff, so that staff actually start to have those informal conversations, that they get to know each other, because again, we feel it's important for people to belong to the school community, but also we feel that we can get the best out of them if they start to forge links between colleagues from different departments. So there's that benefit to it as well. So within that, we have a couple of staff socials every year. So we go out somewhere at Christmas, and we do a summer celebration as well. We also have things like staff choirs. In lockdown, we had one member of staff that ran an online crochet club, which I couldn't believe. I doubted her far too much, clearly, because she ended up with, I think it was 18 members of staff on Zoom teaching them to crochet, which was impressive. And then we have all kinds of fitness things. So we have a staff gym on site, a strength and conditioning suite that staff can use. We have after school tennis, after school football for staff. So all of those things that are really important. And again, fitness is really important to staff, and it's this thing that people often say they don't have time for in terms of work and family life. So we try to do some of those things in school. The other thing we're really conscious of is really improving the working environment. So one of the things that we've done is we have completely refurbished our staff room. We have removed all work-related things from our staff room, so that it is very much a space for the staff to go and to relax and to socialise and to talk and to chat about their day. The other thing we've done is we put a coffee machine in there, which is always a winner. So there's now free coffee for the staff in the staff room. So we're trying to create a really nice space for them to work in. And we're very mindful of improving the staff areas around the school as well, so that they have a really nice working environment. And another key part is obviously getting the feedback from the staff and really feeling like we are listening to them and what they want from their school. So we do frequent staff surveys, and we've also done things like working lunches as well, where members of staff can come and feedback about wellbeing or what they think the pressures are in terms of workload. And again, I think staff being involved really creates a sense of community and less of a sense of them and us between SLT and the rest of the staff. In terms of support, we really want to support our staff. Again, it's so important that we do this in order that they come to work healthy and happy. And actually, life doesn't always go to plan, and we still want to support them even when that happens. And when they're struggling, we want to be there to support them and to help them through it. So one of the things we have is a wellbeing champion. And the wellbeing champion is actually an assistant head who is in charge of wellbeing. And we think that sends a really important message to the staff as well, because it really says that we do genuinely prioritise this, and it's something we think is really important. And that person is somebody that they can also go to if they do have something they want to speak about with regards to staff wellbeing. We also buy into a 24/7 employee assistance programme, so our staff can contact that line 24 hours a day, 7 days a week about anything to do with their personal lives or work lives that they can get support with. And we also offer all staff through Perkbox 4 structured counselling sessions. And we know that people might need that at certain points in their lives. We also provide new staff with staff buddies. And the other thing I think that Debbie, one of our members of staff, will talk about later, is that we're very supportive of leave of absence requests. I'm a mum, and I didn't want to miss the first day of school for my children. I didn't want to miss the school play, all of those really important milestones in our children's lives. So any kind of leave of absence request that a staff member feels is really important to them, wherever possible, we will accommodate that. And again, that is really, really appreciated by the staff. We also try to give some perks. Now, education isn't known for its perks. However, we do our best. So we subscribe to a platform called Perkbox, which essentially is a sort of discount platform where staff can access various discounts for restaurants, shops, all kinds of different things, days out, all of those different things, travel. And again, it's really appreciated by the staff. They also get free food and coffee. So I mentioned the coffee machine, but things like open evenings, we supply food, inset days. Basically, whenever we're making staff work above and beyond, we do try to give them food to keep them going. Some other little perks that we have are that we've changed our staff admission policy so that staff children are prioritised, and we also provide the childcare vouchers and cycle to work schemes as well. So we do try to include perks for our staff where possible. Now, again, some of these things obviously incur costs, which may or may not be within your school budgets. However, some of them also are things that you can just do to show that you care. So hopefully some of those things are useful. I'm now going to introduce two members of staff who are part of our sixth form leadership team, who are just going to talk a little bit about some of the stuff we do to nurture the sort of wellbeing community here. Sorry, it's because my computer's on mute.
Sorry, Sam and Sarah, we can't.
Sorry.
Box. It's initiatives that are, well, we're going to talk about some of the wellbeing initiatives that we think work really well in the school. One thing that I've really benefited from is the use of Perkbox. It's an initiative that our school is bought into. And not only can you benefit from lots of discounts from well-known brands or days out for the children, you can also recognise your colleagues on them. It's really, really nice. You get a lovely heart saying, you have a recognition, well done. There's a little message that goes out to the whole of the Academy Trust to say what you've done, and it's a really nice way to do public praise.
It's lovely, and particularly as we get notice in the bulletin that comes out every Friday. So if we've had a particularly hard week at work, when you read that recognition, it all makes it seem worth it.
Yeah.
We also have a really flexible approach to our timetable. So if we have a PPA period 5, we are allowed to go off site. There's that professional trust in all members of staff that if the work gets done, it doesn't actually matter whether it's done in school or when you're at home, which for me in particular, having that work-life balance is really good.
I think another thing that I think works really well for wellbeing is the emphasis that we place on effectiveness and efficiency, and making sure that whatever you do is also efficient as well as effective. And also making sure that any decisions that are made by SLT about the way people work is evidence-based, to make sure that we're not wasting time doing something doesn't ultimately have a long impact. And we're also as professionals encouraged to reflect on this and think to ourselves, right, how much effort am I putting into this, and does this measure up to the amount of impact that I can see is being had in my students' progress?
I could agree with that, and also we don't have that them and us culture with SLT. We're very much all working for the students here. So again, that links into is what we're doing. Is it making that impact on their progress and on their lives?
Let me just mute. Right, there you go.
Okay. I think this is you, isn't it? Do you want me to start? Yeah.
Okay. Can you hear me again? Sorry, we are having a few issues with the videos, I think. So apologies for that. So that's what we do very much in terms of our well-being and the things that we do to look after the staff. The other thing that we do is we very much look at and we try to prioritise the workload. And really, we've got this phrase of giving space to breathe. So we try to give the staff space to breathe and to think. So when we're asking them to do something, it's not a case of constantly piling more and more on. We try to sit and be really mindful and to think about, okay, well, if we ask them to do that, when are we going to give them time to do it? Or what else have they got to do at the moment? So I think in terms of our approach, it's very much a case of thinking about our school calendar, thinking about how we manage things like assessment windows. And we have a really strategic approach of that. And that is something we really discuss in our SLT meetings and also at department level meetings as well. Some other things that we've done is we've given faculties away days, so where we've asked them to do quite big pieces of work where they've had to reflect on their curriculum. We've actually given them some space to have an away day with the faculty to actually do that. Another thing that we did was give some remote learning days so that the students were actually learning from home, and we provided a series of activities for them to do, whilst at the same time the staff had time to actually do the marking and the moderation and all the things they needed to do for the teacher assessed grades. Other things that we do is we've tried to give every member of staff an extra PPA, just to give them that little bit extra time, because again, that time gives them more time to mark and to plan effective lessons and really to reflect on their curriculum and what they're doing and is it working. The other thing we do is we try very hard to have cover supervisors employed and to have enough cover supervisors employed so that staff don't have to do cover, because we recognise that that can be quite a sort of stress trigger. If somebody's got their day planned and their lesson planned, then all of a sudden they have to go and cover a lesson, it can really disrupt their day. Yeah, Sam's going to take over.
We're aware as well with that those things have costs, because there were cover costs from for faculty away days to pay for the cover in order for people to actually get away as a team and plan. And the same with remote learning days that we're hoping to even run this year, because we've learned that actually we've been fortunate that students are able to work independently at home. And from a survey from parents, actually, we found out from students and parents how much they really valued days, almost like sort of catch-up days, where they could catch up on their work and studies. And we really hope to continue with those this year as well, to give staff time as well together in school for planning. We also cover for peer observation. So we don't expect peer observation that we've really driven forwards in the last couple of years for people to just find the time for that, but actually we give the time for that. So we cover people so they can go in and observe someone else teach, which has meant that actually suddenly the numbers of people taking part in peer observation has rocketed as a result. We understand they all have costs. The final sort of bullet points there don't really have much of a cost, but are worth just thinking about in terms of, we actually really strategically look at the school calendar. We're really mindful of when meetings are calendared, and that's something we at SLT really look at carefully. And we look at not just the calendar of meetings, but we look in the calendar of when we're asking things from staff. So we'll look in the calendar of when we know that there are assessments coming up, so we know when staff will be really busy marking, and we know when there's reporting deadlines, so that we'll make sure that meetings and other things that we as a leadership team ask our staff to do, it's not clashing or coming in a week when they're all busy with those things. We're really strict on meetings finishing on time. We do not overrun meetings. If anything, they finish early, because that can be incredibly stressful for people as well. And then, as you've heard about our CPD program, converting days to holiday there.
Another thing that we do, which we think is really important, is again related to wellbeing really, and it's a way of celebrating and recognising staff. And this is something that goes down really, really well. Ultimately, the reason why we all came into education is for the students. So we do an annual assembly for the staff, where we talk about the staff and we talk about why the students should really appreciate and value their staff. And we really try to sort of make them realise the amount of effort and work that they put in. And each member of the school completes one of these postcards and thanks a member of staff. And it's really lovely to see the thanks that they give to their staff. Everybody from the caretakers to the canteen staff to the head teacher ends up getting a nomination for various different reasons, and the staff unanimously say that it really makes their day. We try to do this on the back of maybe when they've had a really busy period of marking mock exam papers, and it's a real kind of uplifting thing to receive. I do regret it a little bit when I'm posting 1,300 postcards. However, it is a really lovely thing and the staff really, really appreciate it. I'm now going to go to a video again, which hopefully is going to work this time without more ado, of Debbie, who is one of our faculty leaders for science, and she is going to talk a little bit more about our wellbeing and workload strategy.
We'll just try that again. We'll come back to that one because that video doesn't seem to be loading at the moment. Sorry about that.
Another thing a couple of the staff have talked about is our perk box recognitions, and this is something that we do as part of the whole of Insignis Academy Trust. And we basically go onto perk box, and there is a section in perk box where you can recognise something that somebody's done to go above and beyond, or something that's really made a difference to your day. And again, you get an email notifying you that this person has nominated you, and it really does make your day. It's a really lovely way of creating that sense of community and celebration and making people feel valued. Matt's video is working. So we're going to go to a video from Matt Williams, who is our faculty leader for humanities and has recently been made an associate assistant head.
Things like crown trophies we have at the end of every week, just staff thanking other staff for what they do. A big thing I think for all. Actually, I've got a whole list of things here. I'm not going to go through all of them now, but things like crown trophies we have at the end of every week, just staff thanking other staff for what they do. A big thing I think that all the staff have enjoyed have been our use of twilight inset sessions, which has meant that we often had longer summer holidays. So, for example, this year we had 3 days off at the start of the summer holiday. We broke on the 16th of July, which is my memory is the earliest I've ever broken up for the summer holidays, which I think means a lot to the staff. The fact that we can do that, it definitely improves your work-life balance and your quality of life. And I think the school has done really well in maintaining this. Obviously, I said earlier, I'm now an associate assistant head teacher with responsibility for wellbeing, and the fact that that role exists at all, I think, shows the school is taking wellbeing seriously. Within my remit of that, I'll be working with an existing assistant head teacher, just to look at kind of how we can improve staff wellbeing, staff happiness, work-life balance, and ensuring that staff are happy and motivated. I think the school have realised that, well, I think they've always known that a motivated and happy staff tend to work well and want to stay at the school. So in terms of staff retention, one of the reasons I've been here for 8 years is because I really like it. I really like working here. I feel valued as a professional. And I know that if I do any problems or I'm unhappy, there are people who will listen to me further up the school. And even this week, I've taken various issues to my line manager, and it's been listened to instantly, and things have been dealt with very, very quickly, improving the lives of my faculty team. So speaking from experience, I would say I think the school do a really good job of supporting staff wellbeing, and it seems now that I'm sitting in on senior leadership meetings and things, it seems that wellbeing is really at the heart of everything the school decides. Whether it's booking meetings or having after school events, a lot of it is we think about how it's going to impact on staff's work-life balance and wellbeing overall. So I think it's something the school does really, really well, and I think other schools could certainly learn from. Okay.
Should we stop sharing and then?
Yeah.
Okay, so that kind of draws us to a
Sorry, Sam, I think you've put yourself on mute.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. So we thought we'd now sort of move into Q&A where people can ask us any questions, and we'll give you answer them as best as we can, and then give people the choices whether they want to stay on and get into breakout rooms, and we'll join those too and have a really good discussion about some of the things that we're doing, and also we'd love to hear from you guys and learn from you as well. But before we take a break, a comfort break, are there any questions? Mark, I think there might be some in the chat, are there?
That's right, yes. There's a couple of questions from Beth Hart. Beth, I don't know if you wanted to come off of mute and ask what you wanted to ask.
Hi there. A few questions. The first one was, what's the cost of that box?
That's a really good question. Do you know what? When I saw it in the chat, I've actually just texted someone to find out the exact costs. So hopefully I'll give you an answer soon. And
the second question I had was, when you have staff off site, does that not cause you issues in a fire alarm when you're registering the tutor groups?
No, so we always know who's gone, so they always tell their line manager and sign out. So yes, as with all these things, it could potentially put pressure on someone else who's got to manage 2 tutor groups next to each other. But with SLT presence and heads of year, we've not had a problem with that. So therefore people sort of see the benefit outweighs the cost of that. So it might mean that someone's gone outside in the unlikely event of a fire alarm. However, they'd rather that privilege than that be a reason not to do it. Okay,
and I did have one more question.
Yeah.
So what is your rough marking policy? So regularity, depth, because that's often a sticking point for us.
It's a really good question. It's something that we believe really varies between subjects. So our marking policy is very much about it's faculty led and subject leader led. So each faculty has their own assessment and marking policy that goes through the SLT link and is approved, and we know where they are. But ultimately, the policies of that kind of workload comes from them. Faculty leaders meetings are very much led by them. That was quite a change actually from schools I've been to before, where often faculty leaders meetings are kind of done to rather than done with and led by SLT. But we've worked really hard to kind of have faculty leaders setting the agenda as much as possible alongside SLT and really using them strategically. And assessment and marking policies and the curriculum, etc., are all things that are discussed and agreed at that level.
Thank you.
No problem. Are there any other questions from anyone else? Haven't heard about the exact cost of per box yet. Any other questions?
There's a couple of questions in the chat about the postcards, and yeah, I think with regards to the postcards, it's amazing, but actually every member of staff ends up with one, weirdly, and that's kind of something that's happened a little bit unintentionally. I suppose if I do check, actually, so I have a staff list and I check who has received a postcard, and I suppose if anybody hadn't, then I would maybe strategically go and speak to a child and say, that member of staff did something really lovely for you. Do you think you'd like to thank them for it? So if I needed to, I would definitely engineer that. They're not posted, they are put in pigeonholes. And this year I actually tried to do it via Google Form and do it electronically, which again was a little bit of a time saver and made it a little bit easier. But yeah, the staff really love that.
Sam, can I ask you about the no cover policy and how you manage that?
Yeah, so that does come at a cost, and we're aware of that because we've had to, over time, firstly invest in full-time cover supervisors. So we have a number of full-time cover supervisors on site who double up as AETs and do if they're also free. So, but their predominant role is to be a cover supervisor. So they're full-time, that enables that to kind of, on most cases, happen on a daily basis, even if someone's sort of sick and it's unplanned absence. So otherwise, we have our list and we'll buy and supply on a day if we need to. But we really, really rarely call on any staff, and we'll go to SLT first if we really have to. But it is really, really rare, almost unheard of. But that one is at a cost, and that's something we've decided to kind of build that into our kind of capacity plan.
Okay, thank you.
We felt realistically for cover to not be something we give to staff, that full-time cover supervisor is the only way to make that work, because we all know the problems with supply, and that they don't understand the expectations of student behaviour, work, etc., and know the school, whereas your full-time cover supervisors go through the same induction as our other staff and actually become really a part of the school. And they sort of are part of our personalised learning team as well. So,
Sam, does that mean that previously staff would have had a cover period on their timetable that's no longer on there, or that they just got taken in their PPAs for cover?
So they would have been used, not in PPAs, but in their non-PPA time, could have been used for cover, but now they're not. So to them, it feels like pretty much a PPA, because unless they decide to have a meeting with someone else, it really it's time for themselves. That risk of being used for cover has been taken away. So
they've sort of been given an extra free period.
Essentially, yeah.
Okay.
It means that their free periods are protected by and large.
But is that sorry, just getting my head around it. So is that in addition to, say, the 10% that they'd always get?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Thanks.
May I ask the question? Oh, sorry.
If I could just ask a question, how do you go about organising who's invited to the wellbeing feedback sessions? Is it sort of voluntary, or do you just to get a cross-section staff? I'm not quite sure how you go about that.
Yeah, we have made it voluntary, but again, I think when I have asked people if they would like to come along, I would always say that I would like people to come from all different areas of the staff, so support staff, etc., and so that the school is really represented. And obviously the staff surveys, everybody can do those anonymously, so that's another really, really valuable tool, I think, for us to get the sort of the temperature of the staff and to gauge how they're feeling.
Thank you.
I was wondering if there was anything that you did particularly different for newly qualified ECTs or people in perhaps the first year of their practice. Yeah,
so in terms of ECTs, we really, really try to provide sort of in-depth support for them. So we are working, for example, with the ECT programme, like many of us, with our teaching school hub, so that they're getting the training from the teaching school hub. However, obviously they have an in-school school mentor, but they will also have a school buddy that is actually not in their subject area as well. Plus we will try to have some kind of social things that are to do with just the new staff and the ECT. So they do have a sort of varied network. So it's not just that they've got their one mentor and that's the only person they can go to speak to. It's really about trying to connect them up to various different members of staff and make sure that they've got that support and that training in place. So yeah, I think there's quite a broad network for the ECTs in place.
Something as well for new staff and ECTs and NQTs, etc. We got a lot of feedback from middle leaders that what would cause some of them stress would also be when they're new is finding everything on a Google Drive, and how stressful it is when you're new to try and find all the links to all these things, whether it's Perkbox or a room booking system, or the key kind of policies or key documents that we have in school. So actually we have built a Google site that's called the Staff Hub, and we've launched that this year. It's got its own trainee section and linked to a website for just trainees as well. But it's got key sections like key documents, key links, and it's just a one-stop shop for that everyone needs, with everyone's needs on it. And the feedback from staff seems to be that's working really well, and reduces a lot of stress. It's
worth saying the Staff Hub also has a whole section on wellbeing, where it has links to, for example, the number for the 24-hour employee assistance programme, and all the information they need as to how to access those kinds of things as well, and also additional resources that they might want to go to in terms of support for their wellbeing as well. So the Staff Hub is hopefully, it's quite a new initiative, but it's something, again, just to make staff's lives easier, really.
That's great, thank you.
Could I just ask, in terms of the 24-hour support, how does that work and operate?
It's literally, it's through Perkbox, and it's a number that staff can call. We advertise the number in our staff bulletin weekly as well, so that they have regular access to it. It's on the Staff Hub. It's not something we monitor in any way, but it is something that is there for staff to use. So in terms of obviously how many people have used it and things like that, we're not entirely sure of. However, it is something we really, promote to staff, alongside the structured counselling that's offered through Perkbox as well. So that's another thing we say, this is available to you, please do use this if you should need to.
Thank you. And do a lot of all the things that you've mentioned, do they also, are some of those used for administrative staff, or is it just the teaching?
No, 100%. And I think that's one of the things that we really think is so important. Support staff are as important as the teaching staff in our school, and schools would not function without them. So another thing that we didn't mention about actually is that we also have CPD for support staff explicitly, to show that we are investing in you, we value you, we want to keep you. And Perkbox, the employee assistant programme, all of those things are for all members of staff.
Thank you.
The analytics from the perks within the Perkbox show that it's being used widely. So in terms of the vouchers and the free coffees and things like that are used widely. Obviously, we don't have access to whether the counselling service is used or not, because that is entirely confidential. Even in just the numbers, we're not given that information. But certainly, we know that the other areas of the perks, in that sense, that they're used widely.
Is there any sort of financial implication for the school in signing up to Perkbox, or is it? I'm
afraid so.
Yeah, I thought there might be.
There is. That's one of the non-free ones.
I'm trying to find out exactly, as I said, I texted to try and find out exactly what we pay, but it depends on the quote, as with all these things, depends on size of the school. So it depends a lot on on staff numbers, and then also the type of package you go for as well.
We initially started it just with our school. Now we're a trust of 2 schools, and we're a growing trust. So again, all of the sort of the fees and things will be negotiated depending on the numbers of staff in the trust. So it's really per number of staff.
think that's it from.
Is that it for questions, everyone?
So what we thought we'd do here is take a few minutes comfort break, and then for anyone who wants to kind of get into breakout rooms for the last sort of 20 minutes or so of this webinar, then obviously we can give people the opportunity to leave now if they want to leave, and we don't mind at all if you do. We totally understand that, but if you want to stay on so we can get into smaller groups and discuss what people are doing in their different schools, then that would be great too. So perhaps if we take a few minutes break, and then we'll come back and say 3 or 4 minutes, and feel free to use this time to either leave or stay on, and we'll get into breakout rooms shortly. Thank you for listening.
For anybody that is going to leave now, Mark, I believe, is going to post a PDF, which is an overview of our strategy that we've used at Sir Henry Floyd, broken down into the 3 strands of workload, wellbeing, and retention, so that you have something to take away and really reflect on whether it works for you in your context. So yeah, we'll have a quick 10-minute break, and then anybody else that would like to rejoin us for breakout rooms and more discussion can do.
Someone's asked to put the workload slide up.
The workload slide.
Workload slide.
Sure.
That
This
one
one
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Do you want to mute for a bit and then?
Yeah. Workload. How do I? Here we go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
discussion? Remember.
Okay, guys, so for anyone who's interested, looks like there's Sarah, myself, and maybe about 7 of you. We thought rather than getting in breakout rooms, it might make sense we just stay together. I've gone to gallery view and I can see you all, which is nice without a slideshow in front of me. And we could just use this time to kind of chat. We're happy to sort through any of our ideas more. We're really aware that a lot of what we've shared is definitely not suitable for every context. And hasn't got, it's not the answer to everything, but it's just hopefully giving you some food for thought. Is there anything that resonated with anybody in what we talked about, or is there anything you guys are doing that we could learn from you guys that you felt's been really effective in your context?
I did have some questions, Sam, that might prompt the discussions. If
Yeah.
I just share my screen for a second. So there were some questions that I put together here just to consider. So what do you currently do to support wellbeing in your school? What do you do to manage workload? And what do you do to recruit the best people and keep them? And I suppose it's considering, what do you already do? And is there anything that we've maybe given you today that you could consider and take back to your own schools, depending on various different factors? So I suppose those are the key questions, really. What do you do for wellbeing? What do you do for workload? And what do you do for recruitment and retention? Anyone want to share anything they think they already do?
At the RGS, I think there's 4 of us from the RGS, but I think we do quite a lot of all that already. You guys can tell me if I'm wrong, but one thing that's really stood out that I've written down is just this idea of, it's not necessarily about reducing the workload, but just making sure that the workload that's there actually feels worthwhile. Like, it feels like we have to just accept that being a teacher in state education means a hell of a workload. We can't get rid of it. Some of it just is what it is. But are we doing it in the most effective way? Is it efficient, and do staff believe that what they're being asked to do is actually worthwhile? And if it's not, then we probably should get rid of it, which I feel like at the RGS actually happens, but it's not always made explicit. And when new staff join in, often things have just happened that way for such a long time that they're at the end, not the thinking process that's gone before. And so sometimes it feels like, oh, there's so much to do, or is this really the best way of doing it? Because lots of things are interwoven, but until you've been there a while, you don't realize how changing one thing actually impacts 4,000 people. And it does need a whole new reevaluation. So I feel like, just have you almost don't want to say, we're doing this because it makes sense, so it is actually good for you, but you also kind of need to say, we're doing this because it makes sense and it is actually good for you. And finding a balance of doing that is quite difficult.
We found that, didn't we, as well, as part of the process. Was, you're so right, like, it felt wrong because you feel like you're blowing your own trumpet if you do say like that, but actually we thought we do actually need to make explicit what we already do. And you're right, for like particularly new staff who join, that this is our strategy, this is what we're doing, and this is what we want to do further. And we kind of took it through the faculty leaders, didn't we, and said, we believe we're doing this, and do you think this is true, and is this right, is this fair? Do you agree with this? And then they kind of added to the list of things that matter to them. And that was our kind of foundation, really, of things that we want to keep, and things that cost, and that we need to make sure that what we do is worth it.
And I think as an SLT as well, I think that question that some of the staff talked about impact, is really key. So when we're going to do something we've always done, asking that question, but well, hang on a minute, is this having an impact or is this not? And I just think that's a really valuable thing to just sit back and reflect on when you have a minute. So things like written reports, we've really changed in recent years how we do written reports, because we sat and felt, there's an argument for it, but for our school we felt actually we're going to change that slightly. We're going to modify how and when they receive written reports and who receives them, because that will have an impact on workload, but won't necessarily have an impact on communication with parents or student experience or outcomes. So we changed it. We
did a survey, didn't we?
Yeah.
The survey for parents.
We did a survey for parents,
and staff and stuff, just to kind of find out the temperature of whether parents would really mind. We kind of worded it kind of, we didn't just say, would you mind not getting reports anymore? but we just kind of did it in a way, and we realized that actually lengthy written comments wasn't something that parents particularly needed, and that they get that at a face-to-face parents' evening, they get all those kind of comments then. But actually, they didn't need that in a written report. They just wanted to know how their kid is doing, very, very simply.
Yeah, I think reporting is something that, again, at the RGS, you know, that's a recent thing that has been implemented, and it's probably also on the back of having, you know, the pandemic year, that it was felt that perhaps rather than doing subject reports, there'd be a form tutor comment. So at any point there is that you are just doing your forms reports rather than doing endless subject ones. And you know, the other thing is sort of continuing with virtual staff parent meetings, rather than be expected to be on site. So, you know, I think we did have a bit of a think at the end of last academic year in terms of what were the good outcomes of a lot of the online stuff, and what do we carry on with and what do we not. So those are a couple of things. I think, you know, it does, at the end of the day, I mean, there's some lovely ideas that you've given, but did you end up finding that the funding had to be taken away from something else in order to be put into the wellbeing bucket?
Yeah, that's a good question. Some of it yes, some of it no. The funding that we did for faculty away days, where we paid for like them all to go away for the day and we covered their lessons for the day, that was a saving because we saved in cover during lockdown. So we kind of had this money left over and we thought, do we keep it and do it on something else, or shall we kind of just gift it almost to every department and give them all a treat and give them all a day away with some spending money? So they all kind of actually hired really nice rooms in pubs and had the day there, and you know, did all of that. And you're always weighing that kind of thing up. Is that though the best use of money? We did feel that was at the end of last year, and with faculty leaders, we went through them and they agreed that, and you know, that would be really, really good. It's hard to know whether there's anything specifically that we've not done. There will be, yes, because they're just not in an endless pot. But ultimately, we just did. It's even having an assistant head in charge of wellbeing and giving them a responsibility of money, because there's a lot of time and investment that's going into that. You kind of make that decision if that is going to be serious and it's not going to be a tick box thing. An SLT member needs to drive it. Otherwise,
yeah, which is very impressive. Yeah.
Hi, I had a question about, you were saying you may well continue with having kind of remote learning days to give staff a bit more time. My concern at my school would be that we have pushback from parents that would say they've already missed so much time in school. What are you doing? Has that been an issue?
So, well, we haven't done it yet. So hopefully I haven't even got myself into trouble on that recording. But basically we, at the end of the second lockdown, we did a really big review on all of those kind of big things that happened in lockdown that we thought actually were quite good. So we asked them that question, would you, we asked students and staff, would you value having remote learning days again, even after school closures, when we return back to normal? And 80+% of parents said yes, please. They would still love a day of one day a term where they can actually have their child working from home for the day. And when we did the remote learning days,
but not live lessons,
we did during lockdown to give staff space, SLT, but no, so it was all independent work. So when we did it during lockdown, we just said to all staff, no teaching live lessons for a day. And we did that. We had, I think it was 3 or 4 in the end of those, just to give staff a day off teaching live lessons and just to plan and mark, etc. We'll take some time out. And we got no kickback we got absolutely no kickback from parents when we did that. So we then did a survey and asked that question about would they mind if we continue doing that in this academic year, and we still got an overwhelming response of that would be something they'd be happy to keep. So we need to go through the right processes on that, obviously, and check that, you know, it's something we put together, and get that approved in the right way. So it's certainly not a definite, but it's something we'd really like to continue.
Beth, I wonder if Sam,
the
I wonder if you could do it.
Parents didn't seem to be at all that was a problem in the survey we did. Otherwise, we just wouldn't do it, to be honest.
Could you do it on a rota? So you had some departments off on particular days, and the kids are still on site. So could you do it on a rota?
Yeah.
So you've got some staff off. So let's say you had history and English off one day.
Yeah.
Students are still coming in and work is set, and then parents haven't got to worry about getting kids in. And then if you've got in-house cover anyway, and if they don't need to actively be taught, you could put multiple classes in the hall or whatever, couldn't you? Because they've already got a desk and a workspace.
Yeah.
If there was a potential worry about parents saying, I need to get to work, or I don't feel right leaving a year 7 at home on their own.
Yeah.
It's not the same as having the entire school's staff together having a day off.
But it's a compromise, isn't it? You're right. And I was only chatting with the head yesterday about that, kind of whether we'll do it exactly the same way of literally no one being on site, or whether we'll do certain year groups, but yes, if we did faculties, then obviously the students can still come on site. Either way, we'd have to have the option of them coming on anyway, whether it's vulnerable students. It couldn't be literally no one is allowed on site on a remote learning day, but they're just things that we're considering. I don't know about you, but parents' evenings were really successful online for us. We had really the highest attendance we've ever had when we were online. And again, the overwhelming majority of parents want to keep them online. That was in the 90s, 90% of parents surveyed wanted to keep it online, and similar with staff.
So we did Parents' Evening online just with tutors through Zoom. Does anyone have a programme that they would recommend where it's timetables, all the subject teachers?
Yeah, we use School Cloud, don't we? We found that.
Sorry, could you say that again? School Cloud.
School Cloud. Where parents can literally book in with the specific subject teachers.
And do you have any problems where?
Sorry, go on, Beth.
Do you have any problems? So, for example, our RE teacher teaches every single year 7 class, so they obviously wouldn't be able to see every parent. Do you get problems with that, or is it just first come, first serve? You've got an issue, email the teacher?
We have that problem anyway, even on a normal parents' evening. So it didn't, start a problem that wasn't there in the first place. So in fact, for us, it became a far more efficient evening, because you have this sort of countdown. It's like a 5-minute slot, or whatever slot you agree, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, and it counts down, so no meetings overran. That was the biggest thing for staff, was we didn't ordinarily at the end of the parents' evening, we're trying to get our staff out the door at the end of an evening, but they've got 3 or 4 people. Some of them are angry parents who've been waiting, and they're damned if they're going to leave without seeing the teacher. So we found that actually it was really good for people's well-being. Parents were delighted because it meant they obviously have to commute, or for separated parents, they didn't have that difficulty. So there's a lot that worked really well actually through that. And it's a really simple platform. They just go to the next one. You've got a minute's breather or 2 minutes breather between, and then the next person comes up, 4 minutes, off they go. So we'll probably do a hybrid version at least of that moving forwards.
Yeah, I don't mind adding, just really impressed with everything you're doing, so thank you. I've got some good ideas I've written down. Some of the things that we do, we are with Validium. It sounds sort of similar to Perkbox, but without the freebies. It offers kind of counselling service, but then it also does things like financial advice and pensions, and so it's that kind of economic support as well. Whenever we really like our staff to be examiners when examiners exist. And so we actually offer a stipendiary payment for that. So we give them £500 and tell them that they're allowed to mark on site because we really value it as CPD. And then I think just the last one is we actually do no written reports at all, nothing. We literally just give an attitude to learning grade and kind of progression grades, current attainment, but nothing written, because we found people would just copy and paste. It'd be full of mistakes with he, she, etc., etc. As you say, parents weren't getting a huge amount out of them, so we just got rid of them.
Wow, that's great.
Thank you, Beth. That's really, it's really nice to know what other people are doing. And has anyone else got anything that they think we're not doing that we could be doing?
Hi. Yeah. So I hope you can hear me okay. Got an ill daughter at home. So thank you. It's so interesting to hear. You're obviously, I don't know if everybody is secondary school, but I'm actually primary school. So we're seeing it from quite a little bit of a different side. We're a lot smaller. But it was nice. We're seeing some similar things that you've done that we've done. So, but I love the notes about we have our 7 values, which our assemblies are based around, and we sent out postcards to children over lockdown, etc., and to staff. But I love the idea of having a staff assembly for everybody and doing the thank you notes from the children to the staff, really valuing the middays, the cleaners, the admin staff, everybody, and seeing everybody as equal. We've looked at wellbeing. My head is very, very strong on wellbeing, and that's something we're really pushing at the moment. But something we introduced last year was Golden Week. And so what we do, we can't afford the cover in that way, but we do Golden Week. So we have 1 week a term where we have no staff meeting. People are expected, if they can, to leave at, say, about 4 o'clock. People are told to plan carefully to lower the marking that week. Avoid, if possible, parent meetings, etc., etc. And that's been really well received. But also we look at it from the side that not putting pressure on people to do things, because, for example, so we were thinking, right, what can we do? So we did, they did a watercolour art class where just bring along your watercolours, sit outside and do a bit of painting. But we said, if you want to, because what one person may find relaxing, somebody else might not. So we're trying to look at ways that people don't feel that pressure. And for example, at the time I was part-time when we did it, and I was told, go home at 4 o'clock, and I said, I'll find that too much pressure because I'm part-time, but I'm fine. And I appreciated what it meant and actually the purpose behind it. So yeah, I've taken away some certainly some ideas that I'd like to introduce to our SLT and to our team. So thank you very much for your ideas and your support, and it's just really interesting to hear what other people are doing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Louise.
Something we started this term that was a bit different. We don't know the impact yet on wellbeing. It was more for students, a little bit for staff, is during tutor time once a week, a year group goes out and they walk and talk, call it walk and talk mornings, and they just got a route around the site that they do, and they can, if they want to, if the weather's good and the field's dry, then they can also go and jog around the courts and around the fields, and that sort of seems to be going well. It seems to be quite nice. The tutors all go out and chat and walk and talk as well as they go around with the students. We just started that this term. It came back from a group of students who went on a China exchange in China, and they kind of get them all marching around the courtyard every morning, and actually the students said that was amazing and we should do it here. So we're just kind of doing that, a bit random, but it's quite fun. Seems to be quite nice. We're trying to think as well, in terms of getting staff to do exercise, to try and encourage it. We're kind of saying that staff can come in their games kit, like on one day a week, and that can be the day that they go and do a sport after school. But the incentive of thinking, actually, that I'm not wearing my suit and tie on that day or my smart dress, might encourage people to kind of stay on and do a kind of club after school and do some exercise. So that's something we're sort of thinking about as well this year, in terms of just building on what we've been doing. Just little things like that we're trying to think about. Because I don't like wearing a tie.
Sam, I think if I had to come into school in my gym kit,
I will be wearing games kit once a week if I can.
Are you driving?
Just elasticated, aren't they? So you just eat more cake.
Wouldn't
just have double portions. Yeah, and then just pretend I went to the gym after. Yeah, like one of those people who wears gym kit but's never actually seen the inside of the gym. I think there is something to be said. I like that walk and talk thing. There's something to be said about actually spending time with the students outside of your lesson.
Yeah.
Like if you're working in a place that you enjoy, it's not just because your colleagues are great, it's because you really enjoy teaching the kids that you have in front of you. And there's so much more about them than just what they say in their English lesson or what they say in their RS lesson. And we were talking about precinct duties the other week, and we had about 4 new members of staff, and all the questions were, what if there's a fight? What if this? What's if this? And everyone was answering. And I thought, I just want to hold everyone there that I've been here 6 years and I've never had to break up a fight. It's really nice. And the kids will come up and have a conversation with you, and you should just have a conversation with them. And obviously it varies depending on the school that you're in, but even when I've worked in other schools with more challenging behaviour, and I have had to break up fights, there's something to be said about just being around and talking to your students, and it really breaks up your day. And students just telling you what they've been up to, and you know, them seeing that you see them as a real person, but vice versa as well. It just makes your whole day better.
Yeah, definitely.
Something new, we gave everybody a gift in July, and we gave all the teachers, members of staff, a little token each. And with that token, it says on it, to have my assembly covered, or somebody's going to cover my break duty. So as part of SLT, between myself and the head teacher and the deputy, we are going to cover these. Obviously, we're a much smaller school, but again, it's something that's very low cost. So I could find myself on break duty on a very rainy day because somebody decides, So we've told them, use it strategically, think about when you want to do that. So it'd be interesting to see how that pans out this year. But again, I just think it's something that's very, very low cost in our school. But it's being covered by the SLT. So I think it's, you know, a nice, clear thank you to them.
Yeah, we do a similar thing, but it's staff can volunteer to be on that. So there's a set week, a bit like your Golden Week, Louise, where you know, but it's staff and you buddy up with somebody. The other person doesn't know that you are their secret person doing lovely things for them. So it might be, I don't know, making a cup of tea or doing their cover for them, or you know, leaving little surprises for them in their pigeonhole. But there's a dedicated week for that, and that's been, I think that's been running for a few years now. And you know, it's just a little bit of fun, and it, you know, low cost, which is nice.
Nice idea.
I think when you stop and think, it's amazing how much you're actually doing sometimes. So we were writing out a list yesterday in our SLT meeting of kind of like low impact, high result, high effort, high result, etc. And suddenly you go, oh, actually, we're doing quite a few things. And thinking, and then just reflecting on what things are actually having an impact and which things do we need to tweak them. And so kind of some of the things we're doing, listening to your ideas earlier, I think, oh, actually, we're almost there, but actually I quite like the way you're doing it. So we just need to tweak it a bit maybe, or have a slightly different approach to it. So yeah, it's, yeah, we've got to remember ourselves, I think, where we're the ones kind of responsible for it, that actually we're doing, like, we are doing a lot. And give ourselves credit for what we're doing.
Something we've done in SLT meetings, isn't it, Sarah? We have like a people planner where we've actually had on the wall just every member of staff, and really looked at them strategically and just thought about them in terms of talent progression, in terms of like where they're at now, in terms of their career, what do they need, how do they seem, and just kind of check that no one's slipping through the net in kind of their life at work. And we look at it quite holistically. It tends to be from a CPD perspective, but that's often just broader than that anyway, and just thinking about them as people. And we've actually used this whole SLT meeting just looking at every person and just going through them and checking that there's no one who's just drifting away or cruising or unhappy, and really thinking about them as people and as sort of professionals in our kind of professional community. It's quite a powerful thing to do.
I think, Sam, you have to be in an environment where you trust all of your senior leaders and you actually have quite a strong staff body overall for that to happen anyway, don't you? Because otherwise it can turn into, like, if someone's got to be in their bonnet about someone, or someone's watched one bad lesson, you know, if you don't have a really strong, experienced senior team and strong middle leaders that you can trust to talk about people's development honestly but professionally and let it be productive, that could actually end up being quite a harmful exercise, I think, don't you?
Yeah, I imagine it could be. I guess it's just making sure that it's all positive. It's like a positive, forward thinking.
Yeah, I think for us it was very much from a positive angle, wasn't it? In terms of, you know, what can we do? What are we doing enough for this person? Is there something that we could do for them to make them feel valued that we're not doing already? So it's certainly, that was more of the kind of where it came from, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But
like you say, there has to be a bit of trust there, I think, Shannon.
I had a question. So how many duties are expected of your staff? Break, for example.
They do 2 break duties a week. Our staff, yeah.
Another thing we do is if staff decide to do a lunch. It's a simple thing. But we actually do paid lunch duties and they get a free lunch. Again, that's a financial thing, but you know, it's appreciated. And obviously we then get the duty coverage that we need, but the staff get a free lunch and get paid for it.
What do your staff do for breakfast duty? More than that? Or
just once a week for them. We pay our staff £15 for a lunch duty. I like the idea of a free meal, but I'm just thinking if we need them on the field, they can't be in the canteen getting their lunch. So I'm not sure how that would work for us. But yeah, so I'm interested because I thought it was quite low when I first came to this school. I'd only experienced most schools do 2 duties.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in my previous school, Beth, we did 2, but that's because it came out of directed time. So we got an extra free period for the 2 duties that we did.
I thought break time generally came out of directed time anyway.
So we did them over, or maybe it's lunchtime, wherever it was that it was normally the unpaid time, then it came up, we'd got extra free periods for doing it. And then tutors who didn't have a form group would basically do more duties because they'd make up that time. So you sort of had a choice. But then where we are now, we don't, it's not out of our directed time, and none of us object. We all decide to do it. That's what I mean by, like, you just pick up on what's historically happened. So I did hear, Shwada, Steve and Jackie, let's mobilise. I did hear that the fresh coffee that we used to get was because we all do duties that don't come out of directed time, and that's now vanished. But apparently that was set in stone before I joined. So let's mobilise and get our fresh coffee back. There's been a change of canteen staff.
We definitely need a coffee machine in the staff room.
Yeah. I have told our finance manager that this is first year in, Adrian, and the only thing I'm going to mark his success by is how much coffee he gets me. Like, you might sustain the entire business. Yeah, you might sustain the entire school, but what, to do coffee?
Yep, we
have your own little Starbucks on site.
45 minutes a day to make everyone tea and coffee at break time. And they're a cleaner the rest of the time. So yeah, if you want to go back to your SLT and set the bar.
No, Beth, just advertise a job. I'm on my way.
So good. All right. Well,
Sam, as the meeting comes to an end, I just wanted to give you guys some feedback, because I've got a member of my family in your school, and I actually went to your school as well. So I just wanted to catch you for 2 minutes. It's all good.
So you've got a member of family who works at our school, or has come to
No,
school
no.
as a
So
student?
I left the Floyd 20 years ago. Yep. And my niece now goes to the school. So I just wanted to give you guys a bit of feedback if you got a minute. Oh, yeah. It's like what you were doing for remote learning was so far ahead of what we were doing at my school, particularly in the first lockdown. Just super impressed. And the other thing that my sister's really impressed with is your communication. Like, she knows when her daughter's missed her homework, and like, I think that's definitely way better than anything that we're doing here. So just thought I'd pass on just a couple of things that were really positive. But yes, so 20 years ago since I was there.
When it stopped recording, you can share the other stuff, that's fine. But
oh, is it recording? Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Keep going.
Yeah. The other stuff is about the quality of the coffee that you've got in your staff room, I heard.
Yeah. Well, it's not bad. You can have lattes, cappuccinos.
Oh, stop. That's it.
Mocha lattes.
I just want good coffee, just not that instant stuff.
Oh, right. So you have instant coffee. I'm very sorry to
hear
that.
I have to take my own. In fact, I think everybody on the call takes their own.
Yeah, that's not that. Yeah.
We did have fresh coffee, and then new contract with the canteen, and it hasn't transferred over yet. But that's part of the gig.
Yeah. My wife was very happy at RGS.
It's because we had fresh coffee when Joe was there.
Yeah.
It's gone downhill now.
Very happy years there. Yeah. I'm pretty sure she used to go out and have coffees with you.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Wellbeing.
We used to go to the pantry. Yeah. What happens at the pantry stays at the pantry. So don't ask me any questions, Sam.
Why?
Cannot tell you about her cheese and ham focaccia.
All right.
Guys, thank you so much. I'm going to head off, but really appreciate all the ideas. Thanks again.
Thank you, Beth.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Same. Thanks very much, guys.